Your kindness is a treasure, not a donation, not loose change to be scattered in the streets. Tonight I want to speak directly to your heart about something many of us struggle with every day, giving away our kindness to people who neither value it nor deserve it. I remember standing at an airport in London. A woman approached me, tears streaming down her face. "I've given everything to people who took it all and left me empty," she said. Her words struck me because I realized at that moment that kindness isn't just an emotion or action, it's a valuable currency. And like any currency, when you invest it poorly, you experience bankruptcy. That's what we're discussing tonight. Not just kindness, but the wisdom to know where to direct it. Because make no mistake, not everyone deserves your kindness. This isn't about becoming cold or callous. It's about becoming wise. It's about understanding that your capacity to give is not unlimited. And some people are emotional black holes who will drain you dry if you let them. I see people every day who are exhausted, depleted, and resentful because they've poured their kindness into relationships that offer nothing in return. They've confused kindness with weakness. They've mistaken boundaries for selfishness. And they've paid a terrible price. Tonight, we will change that. Tonight, you will discover the power of selective kindness. You will learn that saying no to some people means saying yes to yourself. You will understand that true kindness comes from strength, not from fear. And you will walk out of here with the tools to reclaim your power, restore your energy, and redirect your kindness where it truly makes a difference. Because the truth is simple but profound. When you give your kindness indiscriminately, you devalue it. When you give it wisely, you change the world. Let's get something straight. Kindness is not the same as being nice. Kindness is not people-pleasing. Kindness is not saying yes when you mean no. True kindness comes from a place of strength and authenticity. It's a conscious choice, not a compulsive behavior driven by fear of rejection or abandonment. Many of us grew up being told, be kind to everyone. But this well-intentioned advice can become toxic when taken without wisdom. Because true kindness sometimes looks like standing firm. Sometimes it looks like walking away. Sometimes true kindness means allowing someone to face the consequences of their actions rather than rescuing them for the 100th time. Society has confused kindness with permissiveness. We've been conditioned to believe that if we don't give people whatever they want, whenever they want it, we're somehow failing them. Let me tell you something powerful. The most unkind thing you can do is enable behaviors that ultimately harm someone. When you continually rescue people from the natural consequences of their choices, you're not being kind, you're being an accomplice to their stagnation. Research shows that humans are naturally inclined toward kindness. Our brains release oxytocin, sometimes called the love hormone, when we perform acts of kindness. This creates a positive feedback loop that encourages more generosity. But this biological system can be hijacked. There's a fascinating psychological concept called reciprocal altruism. It suggests that kindness evolved as a mutual exchange system. I help you today with the implicit understanding that you might help me tomorrow. But what happens when that reciprocity is broken? When you give and give and give and receive nothing in return, the system breaks down. True kindness shapes both individuals and communities. When properly directed, it creates networks of mutual support and genuine connection. It builds resilience and fosters growth. But misdirected kindness creates dependency, entitlement. The kindness I'm talking about tonight isn't weakness disguised as virtue. It's not martyrdom masquerading as generosity. It's a powerful force, directed with intention, governed by wisdom, and protected by boundaries. It's kindness with a backbone, kindness with discernment, kindness that knows its own worth. That kind of kindness can transform lives, including your own. Kindness costs something. It costs time, energy, and emotional resources. When you direct that kindness toward people who neither appreciate nor reciprocate it, you're making a bad investment. I met a man who had spent years supporting his brother financially through a gambling addiction. I'm just being kind, he told me. But this kindness had cost him his financial security, strained his marriage, and hadn't helped his brother seek treatment because he never faced consequences. The misplaced kindness was destroying both of them. This is the kindness paradox. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is stop being kind in the conventional sense. Your emotional energy is not unlimited. Every time you extend yourself for someone who takes without giving back, you're drawing from a finite reserve. Eventually that reserve runs dry. That's when anxiety strikes, depression sets in, resentment takes root. You find yourself exhausted, angry, and wondering what happened to the joyful, generous person you once were. That's kindness bankruptcy, and it's an epidemic in our society. Here are the warning signs that your kindness is being exploited. You feel dread instead of joy when certain people contact you. You find yourself saying yes when everything in your body is screaming no. The relationship feels one-sided. You're always giving. They're always taking. They show gratitude only when they want something more from you. They react with anger or manipulation when you set boundaries. You find yourself making excuses for their behavior. After spending time with them, you feel depleted rather than energized. If these signs sound familiar, you're not alone, but recognition is the first step toward change. Understanding that your kindness is being misused isn't about blaming others. It's about taking responsibility for where you direct your precious resources. Because here's a powerful truth. Every time you say yes to someone who drains you, you're saying no to someone who deserves you, including yourself. Not all soil is suitable for planting. A farmer doesn't scatter precious seeds on rocky ground or among thorns. They identify fertile soil that will nurture growth and produce a harvest. Your kindness deserves the same careful consideration. So who deserves your kindness? Let's start with the characteristics of people who honor what you give. First, they demonstrate reciprocity. Not in a transactional, I gave you this so you owe me that way, but in the natural flow of mutual support that characterizes healthy relationships. They give as well as receive. Maybe not in the same way, maybe not at the same time. Second, they respect your boundaries. When you say no, they accept it without manipulation, guilt-tripping, or punishment. They understand that your limitations aren't a rejection of them, but a necessary part of your self-care. Third, they show genuine appreciation, not just in words, but in how they treat your kindness as something valuable, not something expected or entitled. Fourth, they use your support as a stepping stone, not a hammock. They're working toward growth and independence, not settling into dependency. Now, let's talk about the red flags, the warning signs that someone will abuse your goodwill. Watch for people who appear only when they need something. Their communication is almost always accompanied by a request. There's always a crisis, always an emergency, always a reason why they need your help right now. Be wary of those who use emotional manipulation, making you feel guilty for having boundaries, suggesting that if you really cared, you would do what they want, or withdrawing affection when you don't comply with their wishes. Notice how they respond to your needs. Do they show up for you the way they expect you to show up for them? Or does the relationship feel imbalanced with you always in the giving position? Pay attention to how they treat others. If someone is kind to you but cruel to the waiter, that reveals their true character. Sooner or later, you'll be on the receiving end of that cruelty. There's a crucial distinction between helping and rescuing. Helping empowers the other person to eventually solve their own problems. Rescuing creates dependency and enables dysfunction. Are you helping this person grow, or are you preventing necessary growth by continuously rescuing them from the consequences of their choices? This isn't about creating a checklist and coldly evaluating every relationship. It's about developing awareness. It's about noticing patterns. It's about recognizing the difference between relationships that energize you and those that deplete you. Because every relationship in your life is either an investment or a liability. Choose wisely where you direct your kindness. Boundaries aren't walls. They're bridges. They're not about shutting people out. They're about letting them in under conditions that are healthy for both of you. Setting boundaries is the highest form of self-respect. And paradoxically, it's also essential for genuine connection with others. Many of us resist boundaries because we've been conditioned to believe they're selfish. Let me be crystal clear. There is nothing selfish about protecting your physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual well-being. In fact, it's the most responsible thing you can do, not just for yourself, but for everyone who truly depends on you. So how do you establish healthy boundaries? It starts with getting radically honest with yourself. Where do you feel resentment in your life? Resentment is a reliable signal that a boundary has been crossed. Pay attention to it. Next, get clear about your non-negotiables. What are the behaviors you simply won't tolerate? What are your limits on your time, energy, and resources? These will be different for everyone, and they may change throughout your life. The important thing is that you know what they are. Once you've identified your boundaries, you need to communicate them clearly. This doesn't have to be confrontational. You don't need to make a grand announcement or issue ultimatums. Often the most effective boundary setting happens in the moment with simple, direct statements. I'm not available to do that. That doesn't work for me. I need to think about it and get back to you. I care about you, but I can't continue this conversation if you're raising your voice. Notice that none of these statements include the word sorry. That's intentional. Many of us, especially women, have been conditioned to apologize for having needs and limits. You don't need to apologize for taking care of yourself. Now, here's the hardest part. You must be willing to enforce your boundaries with consequences. A boundary without a consequence is just a suggestion. If someone repeatedly ignores your stated limits, you need to be prepared to limit or end your involvement with them. This is where guilt often shows up. We worry, am I being too harsh? Am I being selfish? What if they really need me? But remember this, guilt is the price you pay for honoring yourself. It's a tax on personal growth, and it's worth paying. Because on the other side of that guilt is freedom. Freedom from exploitation, freedom from resentment, freedom to direct your kindness where it truly makes a difference. Freedom to be authentically you. And isn't that worth a temporary feeling of discomfort? There's a reason flight attendants instruct you to put your own oxygen mask on before helping others. It's not just a safety procedure, it's a metaphor for life. You cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot give what you don't have. Self-kindness isn't selfish, it's survival. Yet for many of us, self-kindness feels uncomfortable, even wrong. We've been taught that putting others first is virtuous, while prioritizing our own needs is selfish. This false belief has created generations of exhausted, resentful people trying to earn their worth through endless giving. Let me tell you something powerful. Your value is not determined by what you do for others. Your worth is inherent. You deserve kindness simply because you exist. Not because you earned it, not because you proved yourself worthy, but because kindness is what every human being deserves, starting with you. There's a direct relationship between how you treat yourself and how you allow others to treat you. When you practice self-kindness, you naturally set higher standards for how others should treat you. You recognize disrespect more quickly because it contrasts sharply with your own self-respect. So what does self-kindness look like in practice? It starts with basics that many of us neglect: getting enough rest, nourishing your body properly, moving in ways that feel good, setting aside time for activities that bring you joy, speaking to yourself with the same compassion you'd offer a friend. But it goes deeper than these physical acts of self-care. True self-kindness involves emotional practices: forgiving yourself for mistakes, acknowledging your achievements, however small, setting boundaries without guilt, accepting your feelings without judgment, seeking help when you need it. I want you to try something right now. Place your hand over your heart. Feel its steady rhythm. Now, think of something you've been berating yourself for: a mistake, a perceived failure, a flaw. Breathe deeply and say to yourself, I'm doing the best I can with what I know right now. And that's enough. That's the voice of self-kindness. It doesn't demand perfection. It doesn't keep score. It offers grace. When you break the cycle of self-neglect, something remarkable happens. Not only do you feel better, but your relationships improve. You no longer seek validation from people who can't or won't give it. You no longer accept crumbs of affection when you deserve a feast. You become more discerning about where and with whom you spend your energy. And paradoxically, your capacity for genuine kindness toward others expands. Because now your kindness flows from abundance rather than scarcity. It comes from choice rather than obligation. It becomes a gift freely given, not a payment reluctantly made. Remember, you are not just a vessel for others' needs. You are worthy of the same kindness you so readily offer to others, perhaps even more so. There's a vast difference between random acts of kindness and strategic kindness. Random kindness is reactive. Someone asks, you give. Strategic kindness is proactive. You decide intentionally where, when, how, and to whom you'll direct your generosity. Strategic kindness isn't cold or calculated. It's simply kindness guided by wisdom rather than impulse. Strategic kindness starts with better questions. Ask, is helping this person the best use of my limited resources? Instead of, should I help? Ask, will saying yes honor my values? Instead of, will they be upset if I say no? Ask, what am I teaching about my worth if I do this at my expense? Instead of, what will they think of me? Your kindness is an investment. Like any investor, seek the highest return by directing kindness where it creates the most positive impact. This doesn't mean being kind only when you get something back. The stranger you help might pay it forward to someone else. The kindness you show a child shapes their understanding of relationships for decades. Other times, the return is immediate and personal. The deep satisfaction that comes from aligning your actions with your values, the peace that comes from knowing you've made a difference, the joy of connecting authentically with another human being. Strategic kindness multiplies rather than diminishes. When you direct your kindness wisely, it creates a positive ripple effect. But when you misplace your kindness, it often stops with the recipient. Or worse, enables negative cycles to continue. This isn't about keeping score or only being kind to those who can benefit you. It's about recognizing that your capacity to give is precious and finite. It deserves to be protected and directed with intention. The next time someone asks something of you, pause, take a breath. Ask yourself, is this where I want to invest my kindness? Is this aligned with my values? Will this create more good in the world or will it merely maintain a dysfunctional status quo? Then decide from a place of clarity rather than compulsion. That's strategic kindness, and it changes everything. Many of you are here tonight because you've already given too much to the wrong people. You're exhausted, resentful, perhaps even questioning your own worth because of how certain people have treated your kindness. I want you to hear this clearly. It is never too late to reclaim your power. The process begins with a decision that your kindness has value and deserves respect. This isn't about suddenly cutting people off or becoming cold. It's about gradually shifting the dynamic of relationships that have become imbalanced. First, you must withdraw your kindness from those who abuse it. This doesn't mean becoming unkind. It simply means stopping the extraordinary efforts you've been making for people who don't appreciate them. Stop answering every call immediately. Stop dropping everything to solve their problems. Stop putting their needs above your own essential well-being. For some relationships, you'll need to have direct conversations. I care about you, but I can't continue to support you in this way. For others, you might simply begin establishing limits without announcement. I can talk for 20 minutes, but then I need to go. As you do this, prepare for resistance. People who are accustomed to unlimited access to your kindness will often react poorly when that access changes. They might accuse you of being selfish. They might try to make you feel guilty. They might even threaten to withdraw their affection or approval. These reactions, painful as they are, actually confirm that you're making the right choice. They reveal that the relationship wasn't based on mutual respect and care, but on what they could get from you. Stand firm. The discomfort is temporary. Your freedom is permanent. Next, you need to rebuild your inner strength. This means reconnecting with parts of yourself that may have gone dormant while you were overextending for others. What activities used to bring you joy? What dreams did you set aside? What parts of your identity have been neglected? Reclaiming these abandoned aspects of yourself isn't selfish, it's essential. Because the best antidote to resentment is self-reconnection. Speaking of resentment, you probably have plenty of it if you've been giving too much for too long. Don't deny it or beat yourself up for feeling it. Resentment is valuable information. It tells you where your boundaries have been violated. Instead of trying to suppress it, transform it into resolve. Resolve to create healthier patterns. Resolve to protect your worth. Resolve to direct your kindness more wisely in the future. There's remarkable freedom in selective generosity. When you choose carefully where to invest your kindness, you'll find you actually have more to give where it matters most. Your relationships become more authentic because they're based on choice rather than obligation. Your yes becomes meaningful because it's not your automatic response to every request. You become the author of your own story, not a supporting character in someone else's. And that's what reclaiming your power is all about. As we come to the close of our time together, I want you to picture two gardens. In the first garden, seeds are scattered randomly, landing on pathways, among weeds, on rocky ground, and occasionally in fertile soil. A few plants grow, but the garden as a whole looks sparse and chaotic. In the second garden, seeds are planted with intention, in carefully prepared soil, with appropriate spacing at the right depth and in the right season. Every seed has the best possible chance to flourish. Your kindness is the seed. Where will you plant it? The message I've shared tonight isn't about becoming less kind. It's about becoming more wise with your kindness. It's about recognizing that when you direct your kindness indiscriminately, you diminish its power and deplete yourself in the process. I challenge you to evaluate your relationships, not with judgment or anger, but with clarity and honesty. Who honors your kindness? Who exploits it? Who gives as well as receives? who only takes. You don't need to make dramatic announcements or create unnecessary conflict. You simply need to begin making different choices. Smaller investments in people who drain you, greater investments in those who energize you, more kindness toward yourself. This shift won't happen overnight. Patterns established over years or decades take time to change. You'll make mistakes. You'll slip back into old habits. You'll feel guilty. That's all part of the process. But with each boundary you set, with each time you honor your own needs, with each instance where you direct your kindness intentionally rather than automatically, you reclaim a piece of your power. And gradually, those pieces add up to a transformed life. Imagine what that life looks like. Relationships based on mutual respect rather than obligation. Energy for the people and causes that truly matter to you. Freedom from the resentment that comes from giving too much to the wrong people. Joy that comes from authentic connection rather than approval seeking. That life is available to you. It begins with the recognition of a simple but profound truth. Not everyone deserves your kindness. Your kindness is precious, it's powerful, it can change lives, including your own, but only when it's given from a place of strength, directed with wisdom, and protected by boundaries. I leave you with this thought. The most radical act of kindness you can perform is to value yourself enough to stop giving your kindness to those who don't value it, because when you do that, you become available to those who do. And that changes everything. Change requires action, not just inspiration. Here are some practical tools. Use daily affirmations like, I honor my limits as self-respect. My kindness deserves respect. I can say no with love. I choose where my energy goes. Repeat these whenever you feel pressured to override your boundaries. Try journaling with prompts such as, where do I feel resentment and what boundaries do I need? Who energizes me and who depletes me? What requests can't I refuse and why? 5 minutes daily with these questions will reveal your patterns. Weekly, ask yourself, did I honor my boundaries? Did I direct kindness where valued? Did I practice self-kindness? What boundary needs strengthening? Remember, selective kindness strengthens community. When you stop pouring energy into draining relationships, you can build meaningful connections. Invest in people who show reciprocity, respect boundaries, and demonstrate authenticity. Finally, this journey doesn't end tonight. Personal growth is ongoing. Consider finding resources that support your continued development. Books on boundaries and healthy relationships. Supportive communities where you can practice new patterns. Professional help if you're struggling to break deeply entrenched habits. Regular reflection on your progress and challenges. Remember, small, consistent changes accumulate over time. You don't need to revolutionize your life overnight. Just take one step today toward more strategic kindness. Then another tomorrow, and another the day after that. Before you know it, you'll look back and barely recognize the person who gave endlessly without boundaries. In their place, you'll find someone strong, discerning, and genuinely kind. Starting with, that's my wish for each of you. Not that you become less kind, but that your kindness becomes more powerful because it's directed with wisdom and protected with self-respect. Because not everyone deserves your kindness, but those who do, including yourself, deserve it fully.